Hi guys, Don Eastman here with Hunter Engineering Company. I want to show you the tire changing process on our TCX53 Plus. We will cover a few different items on the machine, so a few different terms of the parts and pieces and accessories that are used. First, we're going to start with the V-breaker here, V-breaker shovel. It's controlled with your hand in and out. That's going to break the bead of the tire. Got our rotation pedal. It is 2-speed. Press down a little bit, it's slow. Press down a lot, it's fast. And we've got our clamping pedal. Okay. All the way in, all the way out. You can clamp wheels from the inside, but we prefer that you clamp them from the outside. So our table is adjustable. So if we're working on, let's say, a 20-inch wheel or an 18-inch wheel, we can just slowly press down the pedal and get our jaws close to where we're working. Okay, over here on the side, our pressing system, we have our lifting disc, which also works as a dismounting tool for difficult tires. And then we have our press arms. Okay, press arm swings over, locks into place, and this goes around. So what this is going to do is this is going to help us push the tire down into the drop center when we're working on a more difficult assembly. So we'll start with this tire and wheel here by breaking the beads. We want to always make sure that our valve stem is about 180 degrees from the shovel when we start. That way we have less chance of damaging the EMS sensor. So make sure this is broken in a few spots. Okay, so we're going to clamp this one from the outside. We have a
20-inch.
We have a 20-inch wheel, so I'm going to open this all the way to 22-inch, and I'm going to get rid of this.
I'm going to zero in.
I'm going to get rid of this center cap here. So one feature that the machine has when we're dealing with a tire like this, or a more low profile tire, it's going to be harder to get the jaws into this area here. Okay? So what we can do, since we're close, we just set the tire on the jaws. Just inspect underneath that you're not sitting on the wheel anywhere. Come to the back of the machine, and we can choose our small cone or our big cone. This is a bigger center bore, so we're going to use our big cone. And our big cone can clip into here. Once we do that, we can use the machine to press the tire up so we can hit the jaws. And then what we're looking at down here is just better engagement. So once it's clamped, once we're down, we clamp and then just kind of release a little pressure off of the press arm. Now, once we swing this press arm over, it's locked into place. The yellow switch here just helps us unlock and it pulls away. First and most important step in the tire changing process is going to be to lubricate the tire. So I'll get my brush nice and lubed up here. Now, we can also have the machine help us with this process. All I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my press arm into place. I'm going to push the tire down here. Now I can rotate and get my brush in here without damaging my brush. Make sure that I'm getting plenty of lube on the tire itself. And get ready for tire changing process. Now, anytime we're changing tires, we want to be mindful of where the TPMS sensor is. During the dismount process, we just need it close to the mount head. Okay? So I'm going to go a little bit past the mount head here. It's okay that we're a little bit before the mount head. We just don't want it right where we're going to insert our tire lever, because there's a chance that we could hit it with the tire level when we're inserting the tire lever. So I'll bring my mount head down, make sure it touches the wheel, lock it into place, and then I'm going to use my diameter knob here to just take a little bit of pressure off the wheel. So my kind of rule of thumb is once you're touching the wheel, you're going to touch the knob here and then give it about half a turn to a turn, and that's plenty. Then we're going to insert our tire level. Once we're here, we're going to pick the tire up over the wheel. We're going to verify that everything looks like it's in the drop center like it should be, and then we'll rotate slowly. And then once everything feels good and everything's released, we can rotate fast. From here, we will get our bottom bead up over the wheel. You notice I brought my TPMS sensor back around. What you want to see is we don't want the bead of the tire down here to be able to hit the drop center. So since the tire is already above the drop center, we can rotate and we won't have any issues with that drop center, with the sensor in the drop center. Okay, we remove the tire. We would grab our new tire, we're going to lubricate again. Once we do that, we will set it back into place. Bring our swing arm over. Okay, and then we're going to position our TPMS sensor. It is going to be a different spot this time. Okay, so one thing that's very, very critical about this mount head is that the tire goes under this wing portion here. Okay, we do not want the tire resting on top. It's got to be below. So I'm going to start my tire below the wing there. And then I need to be careful of my TPMS sensor. So my sensor, kind of my rule of thumb is to get the sensor just past what I call the traction point of the tire here. So you guys see how the tire is just kind of falling below the wheel. As long as the sensor's past that, when we rotate, the bead is never going to be in the drop center. It's going to fall right over it. Okay, we'll bring our sensor back around. Make sure that my tire is below the wing. I can grab my press arm here, swing my roller around. Now it's kind of cool to use the press arm here because I can use the press arm to set my traction point for the TPMS sensor. Just give that guy a little shove. Tire's mounted. And get my sensor out of the way. Get my mount head out of the way. I want to unclamp since I'm clamped from the outside and clamp from the inside. Now I can inflate the tire. We inflate the tire with the pedal down here. It's got, just press on the pedal a little bit and it's going to supply air. If we press on the pedal a lot, we've got a blast that's going to help inflate the tire. Okay. All right. Once we're inflated, we'll unclamp and we can move to the balancing machine.
Okay.
All right. Probably best from over here on this one. Okay. So a feature that the machine has that works really, really well for difficult tires. We have this lower lifting disc or this lower demounting disc, okay? We've changed assemblies here. We have a stiffer low profile tire that you can have a hard time getting the bar into the bottom bead to pull the tire over the wheel. That's where this lifting disc comes into play. So all I'm going to do with this lifting disc is I'm going to set it at a height where I'm just touching the wheel. Okay? Once I'm touching the wheel, I can lock it into place. It's not going anywhere. And then I'm going to use my raise lever here. Now, it's very important that I grab the tire with my right hand here while I raise, and then I'm looking towards the left, and I want to make sure that I can see my disc. Once I can see my disc, I can unlock it, pull it in, lock it. From here, I'm just going to rotate, and it's going to push that tire off with no bar needed. Okay, mounting on this tire is going to be the same. I'm going to get my TPMS sensor in a good position. I'm going to angle my tire over my wheel. Adjust my diameter. Always be mindful of TPMS. Okay, so I showed you guys the press arm. Okay, this machine actually has a dual press arm, and the benefit of the dual press arm, the secondary arm's hanging back here. Now, if we get a difficult tire similar to this one, and we go to mount it, a lot of times we're not going to be able to get that tire into the drop center, or it's going to be a very stiff tire. It's going to get so far around it's going to want to jump over the head. Okay, so the most critical thing about installing a tire is that this bead area is in the drop center. So that's where this second arm comes in. Second arm's going to install in this pin area right here. Okay, what this is going to allow me to do is I'm going to have one tire, I'm going to have one roller following the tire around, helping it stay in the drop center. I'm going to have another roller at the mount head, keeping the tire in the bead area below the knob of the mount head. Okay, so once I do that, I'll just start rotating. I'm going to verify that my tire went into the drop center here. Again, I'm in slow mode. I'm not pressing the pedal down very fast. That's going to allow me just kind of keep an eye on everything, and I can change a low profile tire with very little effort. And that's the tire changing process for the TCX53 Plus. Hi, Eastman here with Hunter Engineering Company. I want to demonstrate the tire changing process on our TCA34, also called the Auto 34. The Auto 34 is more of a high performance machine. It's a center clamp design, unlike the rim clamp design. The benefits of a center clamp, we're clamping the strongest part of the wheel. We have a lot more flexibility when it comes to high-end wheels for wheel protection, things like that. So we've got our platen, okay? Our platen is adjustable for different heights. Sometimes it takes a few hands, and so depending on the offset of the wheel that you're working on, we can change our height here. Mount head, okay, a little bit different than we're used to. This is a leverless head, so we do not use a tire iron similar to the TCX53 Plus. Press arm, operated here. We've got our lower bead roller, our upper bead roller. Okay, These rollers have an indent feature. That's why we've got this switch attached. What that switch does is when it goes down and hits the wheel, it pushes this roller out to assist us in breaking the beads a little better. Okay. We've got our center clamp device here. Our control spot, our control box, everything's labeled. Upper roller up, upper roller down, lower roller up, lower roller down. Tool head here, and then we've got our auto and our manual. What that does is that gives the user, if I switch to manual, I can indent each roller on my own. Okay. Now, if I'm in auto, it starts looking for the switch. Last but not least, diameter control. What this does is this sets the diameter of the bead breaking rollers and the mount head all in one shot. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this switch here with my thumb, and then I will pull or push the adjusters out as needed. So we'll start all the way in. We're going to put our tire and wheel up here. First thing that's most important is that we get our drive pin in a lug hole. That's going to allow us to make sure that the wheel is locked into the machine. Okay, so see, I've got my drive pin in place. I'm going to put my center clamp in place. What this does is this drops down into a slot. You quarter turn it to lock it. Okay, once I'm locked into place, I have a kind of a quick release here. I can thread it all the way down if I want. I can use a quick release. Once I use the quick release, I do want to thread it the rest of the way. Get it nice and tight. To start our diameter adjustment, we're going to set everything to this upper roller. So I'm going to bring my upper roller down with the switch. I'm going to get it fairly close. And then I'm just going to start dialing in where it goes. Okay. So 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch gap here is pretty good. Once I do that, I'm not using this arm for the rest of the tire changing process until maybe I'm doing a different size of wheel or a wheel of a different car. But for now, if this is a 4-tire change, this arm doesn't have to be touched again. Okay, again over here, rotation pedal. It's down at the bottom here. It's variable. The TCX53 is a 2-speed, so it's low speed, high speed. The Auto 34, it's variable. Okay, so the more I push the pedal, the faster it goes. Okay, so I've got really, really great control over the speed of the rotation of the tire and wheel assembly. So from here, I'm just going to rotate. I've got my roller in place. Now watch here how as I go down, that switch activates, and then it indented the wheel to the bead. So this we're gonna break the beads while we're rotating. And what I say is once the wheel is indented, we just want to do little bumps. Okay, we're not forcing the bead off like we do with the bead shovel on the other machine. Okay, this machine we are more let's call it rolling the bead off.
Okay, good.
Say when. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at our mirror down here. The mirror is going to show us the lower roller. Once we get that in place, we can see our switch activated. Okay, now we are in the wheel, so I can speed up my rotation. And then I'm using the switch to just slowly push the tire off. Okay, once I'm comfortable that the bead's broken all the way on the ground, all the way on the bottom, I'm finished there. So next step is going to be, like all tires, that we lubricate the tire before we remove it. So I'm going to use my upper roller on this guy here to assist me. I'm going to create a nice gap between the tire and the wheel and get my brush in there without forcing it or working too hard. Once that's done, it's time to insert the mount head. We're going to get the roller out of the way and we're going to insert the tool head. Okay? So I want to make sure that the head doesn't hit the wheel. Now from here we can rotate. I'm just going to rotate and slowly bump my tool head down. What I don't want to do is I don't want to force it down near the TPMS sensor in case it's hanging low. We don't want to break that off. So I'm going to pass the TPMS sensor, then I'm going to push it down in the tire. And you guys could kind of see how it landed in the tire and it gave it that little bit of a bump. Once I do that, I'm going to bring my sensor around. Once my sensor is close by, I'm going to lift the tire up. Now, very, very, very important in this machine, there's a warning sticker here. It is okay to rotate the assembly when we're inserting the hook. It is not okay to rotate the assembly when we are doing this portion here and pulling the tire up over the wheel. So I've got my mount head in a position to where I'm on my flat spot there. In very, very difficult assemblies, if it seems like there's a ton of pressure in this area, we can use the lower roller to take some pressure off that tire. Once I've done that, I just slowly rotate, make sure everything's going good, and then I can speed up the rest of the way. Now at this point I'll get my mount head. I'm going to use my mount head to kind of help hold the tire up for me. I'm going to rotate my TPMS sensor back around to near the mount head. Once that's close to there, similar to the TCX machine, I'm going to get my roller above the wheel. I'm going to flip my auto switch here to manual, and I'm going to push my lower roller button. What that's going to do is that's going to indent that lower roller. And then I'm going to start slow, make sure everything's going good, make sure not everything's under pressure, and then I can spin the tire off the rest of the way. Once I do that, I'll get all my rollers and stuff out of the way, ready for a new tire. We're going to mount the new tire. Of course, we're going to lubricate the new tire. And we're going to throw the tire up. And we want to angle it back to where our mount head can get to the wheel. Okay. Now, I just want the wheel kind of resting in this area here. So once I do that, I've got to, at this point, position my TPMS sensor. Okay, again, same principle here. I want the TPMS sensor at or past my traction point of the tire. So from here, once we've got everything started, we're comfortable that our TPMS sensor is not going to get damaged. We're just going to slowly roll the tire on. Okay, now we can bring the tire back around. And this is where this machine really, really excels. So I'm going to angle my tire, kind of set my TPMS area. I'll bring my upper roller down to help the tire. And then I can bring my press arm over to hold the tire here. This also helps us set our traction point for the tire. Once we do that, sometimes I might have to give that helper arm a shove, and then we have a very, very easy tire mount at that point.
That helper arm needs to be right in front of you.
The helper arm can be wherever you need it to be. Okay, there's no set place for it. I like to use it to set the traction point for the TPMS sensor. because we've got a good static rigid point. We're not going to worry about the wheel slipping or the tire not mounting, so it's pressed down. One cool thing about this machine, all my tool heads are in a spot. All I've got to do is I can press these 2 buttons and it clears everything. So that's going to also aid in to speed things up. This machine does not have a blaster built into the surface like the TCX53 does. It has an external blasting hose. The way we're going to use this is we're going to start by airing up the tire, and then we want to hold this. This thing's extremely powerful, so this is not a one-handed tool.
Show
okay?
them right where that little notch is, yeah.
So air comes out of here, and we want to use this notch up against the wheel. We do not want to hold it at any sort of angle. We want it perpendicular to the wheel, and then we're going to just press on the foot pedal extremely hard, and get a big blast.
Show that hook assembly for that blaster. Yep.
So you're going to have it vertical to the wheel. My finger is the wheel. Then we're going to have it just like that. And we need to press it in. Okay, if it's not pressed in, the air is just going to exhaust out of here. Okay. Now another thing, 2 hands too. There's about 5 gallons of air coming through a 1-inch hose here. If you're not using 2 hands, this thing very easily could kick back on you and hit you in the face, break a tooth, stuff like that. So we don't want to do that.
Good touch.
From here, we'll just loosen up. These are quick release, and switch on the bottom side too, that little rubber. It's activating. Not open. Yeah.
Did you actually use the helper arm too also when you're trying to pull it up on your feet?
No, there's
Okay.
nothing here. What we will use is we'll use the low roller to push up on the tire to take pressure off. Say ready when you are.
I'm going.
Okay, so here we're gonna just show the mounting process with like a little bit of a stiffer tire on the Auto 34. The dismount's gonna be very, very similar to what we showed you before. And so is mounting this bottom bead. It's gonna be very, very similar to before. So all I'm gonna do, get my tire angled over, get my mount head down. I'm gonna set my TPMS sensor area. I'm going to get my tire kind of started, and then we're going to press it on. So tires like this are very, very difficult to get in the drop center if you're trying to do it by hand. You know, in industry practice that isn't necessarily super safe, is that guy's grabbing tire bars to try to hold it down and walk it on. I'm just a believer, like, why not let the machine do it for you, okay? So we can press the tire down with our bead breaker roller, we can press the tire down with our press arm, and then we actually even have a third item in here. We call this a traction device to help hold the tire down too. And it just kind of hangs out in some spokes. This guy grips the wheel.
So that's just going to help set the traction point for the two beams.
Yep. And then so from here, it's just a matter of me using my different tools to manipulate the tire on. Okay, so we can see, like, a good look right here is, even though I've got a traction device here, my tire is not going into the drop center there. So I can use my press arm, push it into place, help it, and then just roll the tire the rest of the way. If you're teaching and showing with this, and a guy keeps running the tire around and this gets locked together with that, this piece of plastic's like $120, and you're gonna break it. So once it's, once the traction device is right around here, get your foot off the pedal.